Hello, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martin Loffers. I'm the Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. I'm also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, the quarterly magazine and also bi-weekly newsletter. And I'm the architect of the SCM IT Supermap, and I will explain later on. Today, we have a live webinar, 1 hour. We're going to talk about the strategic role of AI in supply chain, hot topic. So bear with me, and I will go through the introduction. So you will see me on the left without glasses, but that's me. And to the right, you will see Piet Buik. He's Senior Vice President of Logility. Hi, Piet.
Hi, Martin. I'm happy to be here.
So I will explain later his role and what Logility in this market is doing. But first, a few practical stuff. This webinar will be recorded. The PDF will be made available afterwards within 48 hours, and you can rewatch this whole webinar on YouTube. But you can interact with Piet and myself. So everybody is on mute, but you can ask questions. So you have a chat function on the right-hand side. So everybody can talk to each other and chat. But there's also a Q&A functionality. You see with the text bubbles. And please use the Q&A functionality to ask questions. If these questions are in line of the conversation I will be having with Piet, I will ask this question immediately. If they are not related, I will reserve these questions for the Q&A at the end. So, and afterwards, at 5 o'clock, we will have an after talk, what we call an after talk at 5 o'clock CET. So as of that moment, Piet and I will go to table 1, and you can have some more questions to Piet. So now I will put off my camera, and Piet can do the same. So you will have a better view on the slides. So basically, you can enlarge your screen. Piet and I will talk about AI in supply chain. So, all right, first the IT Supermap, and I explain the positioning of Logility. So this is the IT Supermap as of last year, and I won't go through the whole thing, but basically you have all kinds of supply lines, ERP, WMS, etc. Also S&OP and demand planning. So all the major players in Europe are positioned over here. And as you can see, Logility is positioned with a whole array of applications, and they have also bought an application in risk management and even network design. And as of the fall last year, Logility acquired Garvis, a scale-up. And Piet, you were a co-founder of Garvis, weren't you?
Yes, absolutely, Martin. So 2 years ago, we started Garvis with the idea to reinvent demand planning with an AI-first solution.
Yes. So, and we'll all talk about later. So, because it's a revolutionary, maybe some of you have seen the webinar last May, I think it was. We had 1,600 registrants all over the world, and they showed amazing stuff, and we're going to talk about it later on. First, why is generative AI so hot, Piet?
Yes, because it has the capability to change a lot of things we now consider a standard practice. Generative AI, and that's what we're going to talk about in this webinar, as different from what we call narrow AI. So the solutions we're used to work with will for the first time open all applications to a language model, which means that data interaction and potential use will fundamentally change, I think, Martin.
Yeah, and one of this clippings is telling us, like Gartner is predicting half of the companies will implement Gen AI in the next 12 months in supply chain. So that's a big number. Do you also agree with this prediction that 50% will apply this?
Yes, so I think absolutely, because the cost benefits and the impact is going to be so big that you will have to. So it's a bit like last time we called it the iPhone moment. It's for the first time in AI that this complexity of technology becomes accessible to user in a very easy way. So that's the big change, I think, Martin, that's going to happen.
And you can discuss this 50%, but basically, it's a matter of how much they will invest and in this implementation. It could be very small, and even in my small company, half of my colleagues and myself are using Gen AI already. So yes, it will be big. can you explain a bit more about generative AI? What is it? Because some people don't understand maybe.
Yeah, so basically, for this webinar, less and less you will see, Martin, in the future. People will be talking about what type of AI is it. It will just
Mhm.
be an interface where you will react with, and that hopefully, when it's made by specialists, will give you the answer that you want. But
Mhm.
just for the purpose of this webinar, we'll talk about generative AI, which is more the self-solving language type access to technology, and then narrow AI, which are the specialized algorithms that solve specific problems um, uh, uh, like high intermittent demand, or how to manage a promotion, how to set an inventory. Yeah? So that's the combination of those two is what will create the power, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. And what Gartner stated is in this clipping about Gen AI and supply chain. The use of chatbots for customer service, or creating new software code on top of existing application. That's what they mentioned in their clippings about their prediction of supply chain use of Gen AI. Um,
But yeah,
yeah,
but let me react to that. I
yep,
I think that's like first intuitive, like, okay, can I write code faster, and I can help my customers with the chatbot. But I think it
yep.
will go a lot more fundamental, and that's what I would like to discuss about.
Yeah, yes, I
Okay.
know, I know, I know. And people bear with me. So that is what we're going to discuss beyond the usual stuff you can predict yourself. Um, but again, what is new because of AI? So can you explain about planning and how to position it?
So yeah, just so Bill Gates, because I wanted Bill Gates on the slide just to say that I'm not alone thinking like that. But fundamentally, if we want to translate what's happening in the world with the help of AI, and come to insights in your digital. And what's digital? That means that the information can be everywhere in your organization at the moment that it happens. But we don't want to just give a number. We also want to explain why. So that it's digital and it's insight driven. And so the why. But also we want to put it into a context that it can be a learning experience for everybody, so that we can adjust to the things that's happening in the world. I think one of the things everybody agrees upon, and I'll come to that, is that I think 89% thinks, that the volatility that we currently have, the VUCA world, is
Hmm.
staying there.
Yeah.
So, and 63% of the people, according to Gartner, thinks that it's hurting them. And so this capability will be addressing that environment, and therefore I think it's extremely important.
And a new thing, I've been in this business for quite a while, since the late '90s, and there was the rise of ERP, and it was company driven and centric, and it was inside focused. But now on the left hand side, you see the outside world. It's hitting in. You mentioned already with the VUCA world, and that is the new thing. Things happening in the outside world, and not address it in a qualitative way, but make it more tangible with numbers and with facts and figures, and
Absolutely.
with cause and effect.
Yes, and not put it into a sequential file, or like a row, where
Yeah.
first this person looks at it, then this person. Like the whole organization as a whole should be able to react to it. And basically, Gartner is coming up with a new word for it, anti-fragility. Instead of making your supply chain resilient, you want to create information that you can very fast react to changes. And see them, the Chinese have a symbol for change, which is on the one side danger, but on the other side also opportunity.
Mhm.
So if there is change, there is also opportunity. And how do you grasp that opportunity to the best possible organization you can be?
To be honest, I had a hard time grasping the phrase anti-fragile. I had to look it up. So give me an example of an anti-fragile entity. And as you know, and basically I looked it up, and anti-fragile, an example is a kid is falling down, and is learning from that. So basically, it's a learning organization. So that's my understanding of anti-fragile, because otherwise I couldn't understand it. So I have to come up and find myself an example. So an anti-fragile organization is like a learning kid, stumbling, falling down, learning from it, and then learning to talk and run, etc. So that's my
Yeah,
knowledge.
it comes from the person who has written the book The Black Swan. He also has written the Anti-Fragile Society, and it comes from immunity. Yeah? Your body, when it finds a new germ or something like that, either it gets sick, but a strong body basically adapts itself and allows to thrive, in an environment when you have these. And that's how can you thrive in an environment where there is change by adapting yourself to the changes. That's
Yeah,
anti-fragile.
I think, but to me, and that's my personal opinion about the Gartner analogy, is an anti-fragile organization with compared with immunity. It sounds rather passive. So how do you train your immunity?
Yes.
And
Let's talk
where,
about that. Let's talk about that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Okay,
but
so I'm gonna.
yeah. But anyway, but now translate it into a supply chain process because that's in the heart of what we're going to talk about.
Yes. So if you look at supply chain, basically it's demand, distribution, production, and procurement. That's
Hmm.
the basic stones. And then you have your goals. You want to grow. You want to be profitable. You want to be close to your customers. But because of efficiency, a lot of organizations have centralized a lot of their activities to make centralized decisions, centralized ERP. But if you look up to the left, you see this stability over the years of your demand. And then the last years with COVID, the war, the of course geopolitical changes, you got this
Hmm.
huge spike of VUCA where we talked about. And now, how do you translate what's happening at the borders of your organization and in the details to your central organization and do the right reaction on it? And that's where the old models start to break. So um, that's the challenge, I think, Martin,
Yeah.
where AI can help them.
Yeah, and I think you have demand, you have volatility both on the demand side, but also on supply chain. Even
Absolutely.
in the next decade, we will see a shortage of raw material, especially bio-based raw material will be very scarce. Everybody wants it, so that will also the next decade of volatility on both sides. Um, but in the last 10, 20 years, we are all claiming, yeah, we can solve it with an S&OP. So how is S&OP and IBP, and now you have S&OE as an extra flavor into it? How do you use this kind of processes?
Yes. So maybe if we go to the next slide, it's a bit. So SNOP, SNOE uh, are basically an invention of almost last century. It sounds a bit harsh, but
Hmm.
where you have to think organizations are have silos, and silos for good reason, because salespeople have to know how to deal with customers, have to know which products sell. Marketing has to know how to deal with media, how to launch market share. Finance have to know how to make profit. Supply chain has to make how to know things, and you cannot do this efficiently without siloing this out. But in the end, these organizations as a whole have to work together. Now, the current process is that you look at the past, you cut off all what was specific, and then all these different parties have made their own plan, an annual operation plan, and sales and operation plan, all dependent on the different horizons. And then they come together all with their assumptions, and then they have to have this battle among each other, to come to create this plan. And although there is this maturity level, the first level is siloed, the second level, everybody
Yep.
knows that. So still, everybody gets stuck, on just balancing demand and supply because it's so complex and because of so many steps you need to go to. And as a result, the consensus is not based on what really happened, but based on can I agree? Can we find some kind of average? And um, even after an enormous amount of effort, it's 1.8 billion
Dollar.
resources that have been, or dollar of resources that have been invested in that. 44% are still only at level 3, and the
Yeah.
result is like an average, which is the worst that you can have for a plan. And it takes very long, to make a plan because it's very hierarchical. So the base has to make a plan, the top makes a plan. So very, very tedious, and not really fit to this VUCA world.
Just go into deeper in this whole supply chain implementation process. So how does it look like right now, and how should it look like?
Yes. So, and technology right now, and now we're moving into, okay, what can AI mean for this? But first, now if you look at the implementation, then everybody knows, these very long implementation. You defined your use case, your process, your data, then you pick your technology. For
Hmm.
instance, the the function that you want to deal with is your inventory. And so then you say, okay, if I want to look at my inventory, I need to create this very specific screen where in this step of my process, this person checks the inventory. And so, of course, this takes very, very long because it's all sequential and all working together. Now, stepping forward with artificial intelligence
Hmm.
and think about Gen AI in the
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
slide, you will see that function, process, and form will merge. Everybody has worked with ChatGPT or another generative AI environment, knows that you
Yep.
can ask any sort of question, and that also the system will help you. And so this whole part of asking for inventory, for instance, can just be a question. Give me a report with my five inventories. That should be adapted given the volatility of my demand. So that function, and for a certain person, that process and that form are now all part of the language model. And you see all these bulbs there.
Hmm.
Um, there are three things that's very important to know about AI. That it can scale, it can scale endlessly because it's in the cloud. And so whether you have to solve a small problem or a big problem, that really doesn't matter scaling wise. It can very easy switch from scope. So you can start, for instance, with a demand or a plan for supply, but you can easily expand this to a budget for sale, a budget for marketing,
Hmm.
and a budget globally. And this word learnings, it basically means the quality of the output is from the highest level. And so the learnings that you normally have by building up a system, putting in parameters, then refining it, is not applicable anymore in this environment. So scale, scope, and learnings in combination with the fact that this form, function, process, or fluid gives an endless amount of possibilities. I will dive deeper into that.
Yeah, before you get there, I have a question about this. Okay, this looks very great, and everybody is thrilled about it. But in a lot of companies, they are still struggling with their ERP environments. Some ERP has been installed a decade ago or even long ago, and some parameters are still on default since 10 years ago. So basically, and you mentioned already, you have to be in the cloud. A lot of the ERP instances are still not in the cloud. But then again, is it needed to have your whole ERP in the cloud, or
No, not
what's
at
it?
all. Not at all. No, no, not at all. And you don't have to confuse. And I don't mean it to, to say that you confuse it, but it is like you have your transactions, and
Yep.
there are a lot of application logistics, all these elements. They're more transactional,
Yep.
and your planning functionality don't need to be the same instance. They
Yep.
can be, one can be in the cloud, the other can be. It's so easy now, to make that these integrations, that it's not a point of
No, but I just want to mention it because I have this IT supermap with ERP on it and other applications. And what you see more and more, leading companies have applied a data lake to extract the necessary data out of their ERP system, and then on top of this data lake in the cloud, they can apply, AI in a much easier way, like you are saying. So that's
Yeah, the data lake is certainly a route. So
yeah.
you can, it's a very good route. And I think in the future, the models will be, you have data, you have narrow AI, so solvers, and then
Hmm.
you have like like a structure that can allows you to interact with it, on which we're going to talk in a minute.
Yep.
So you see these circles also, and the reason I put these circles, and I said 1, 2, 3, 4, is that you can start very, very small with AI and then expand with more data, expand with more data, but already with a minimum of data of like just your history is a reflection of what your customers have been doing. Just that
Mhm.
information can you give you already a ton of insights that allows you to react in a better way to what's coming at you, because the best because people sometimes think, oh, I need a consumer index and I need sell out information, I need. That's not
Mhm.
true,
Okay.
just mining your internal data already can give you a fantastic boost of 15 to 20% in accuracy. And accuracy is only one element. Mining your supplier data can also give a tremendous boost in understanding how you match those two together.
Yeah. So they're also talking about, will Gen AI, you know, uh, limit people, or will take away jobs? Maybe you can get into it. What is the essence of AI in this triangle?
Yes. So, what I always remember is whatever conference I went to, an application, you said it's always a combination of people, technology, and process. And what Gen AI and Narrow AI will absolutely help with is, first of all, people will have a lot steeper learning curve because, in the sense, not steeper in the sense of bad, but they will learn a lot faster. That's what I mean.
Hmm.
Because you can just interact with language that's with your environment. You can say, for instance, bring me to my three worst forecasted products with the most error, and give me the difference with the last. These are things normally you need to go through a training, you need to be assessed. Everybody who starts can have a lot faster information, and the algorithms will help you to get better results. But also the process, one of the biggest things, and we'll come to that in a second, that Gen AI will do, it will translate the other world to people. I'm working in inventory. I will understand what the information sales is giving, but I also will understand what information supply is giving and what the concerns are um, from finance. So because it will be translated for me.
Yeah.
That's and then thirdly, technology and learning technology, complex screens. That all will be simplified a lot and be scaled. So that I see this transformational role of scale of translating to be the big role of Gen AI.
Yeah, yeah, and I totally agree, because finance people have a different jargon and different phrases than supply chain people, and the same goes with the commercial people, and that AI, Gen AI, makes it
Yeah.
possible with the translation into something everybody can understand, with the
Yes.
right prompt, the right questions.
Exactly. Yeah, you can ask. Yeah, everybody has done that. Explain this to me, like to a 6 year old, and then the
Yeah.
system will tell something different. It's strange, but it's like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I see a lot of questions in the chat, and I will try to track it down. But please restate these questions in the Q&A function, so I can track it more easily. And even you can vote on the questions. All right. Moving on. So how does it look like in a process? Because now it's like you've seen it in a triangle. So can you explain
Yes.
it, what it does with narrow AI and Gen AI in the process?
Yeah, yeah. So I keep on using these words like data. You need to have data, but data
Hmm.
can be your sales history, whatever. Narrow AI is when your AI has a specific function to solve something. Solve me, like I said, intermittent demand. Solve me the impact of promotion. Solve me the lateness of my supplier. Solve me my schedule. Somebody asks, can you do schedules? It will be a specific narrow AI. But the generative AI, and I will explain that later, is basically taking those answers, because the generative AI will have the intelligence to translate and to transform. That's what it does. It will have summaries of knowledge that have been created by these specific solvers and translate them. And how does it translate them? It's able to take, for instance, imagine on top a sales.
Hmm.
A sales can have a report or an email or even a message, can translate that audio. Think about Firefly that maybe people have used already, or Copilot, where you can just talk to your screen and it will take your writing. Then use it as an input in your environment using these levels of AI, and then translate it again to the other side in writing and or in an audio message, so that
Yeah.
the other party understands it. I've made an example, I think,
Yeah.
Martin, but maybe you have a still question. So
No, no, no.
the,
Go
the
ahead.
yeah, so you have to think as a generative AI as your junior assistant. We try. It's not your slave because you're that's a bad word, but it's somebody who will help you, but doesn't have the real insights like yourself. But it will help you prepare meetings. It will help you to find results. It will translate what you need to do into observations and graphs, and even give you some upfront critique. But you would not trust it to make like the final decisions. That's a human thing. So the question asked them, will it will reduce jobs? Yes, it will reduce jobs, but it will create more qualitative jobs. Anyway, if
Yeah.
you look at the demographics, we'll be happy, to have knowledge workers
Yep.
everywhere. There's an enormous shortage of knowledge workers, but we less people will be able to do a lot more productive. And I think it will help the roles to become a lot more leading in supply chain.
A quick question from the audience. What would it be the manageable frequency to use it? Because you can play with it all day, and that makes not
Now,
your data is so very productive.
it's not play. Let's look at the next slide, Martin. That's where it's like if you go to a meeting, and supply chain, it's all about meetings, because you have permanent go through decision points. The generative AI, and I just gave an example, because later you can look at the demo. This is real stuff. This works. So
Yeah.
the AI will prep for you your meeting. If you go to an for instance, an S&OP meeting where you want to talk about the, the sales results, that the
Mhm.
report can already be prepped.
Yeah.
And suggestions can already be made, so that in the meeting you can focus on the elements where decisions have to be made. Then afterwards, you don't need to make a report. The report can be an audio or a report and already made to the decision point. And this for all transactions. So it's not a question of how many times you're going to use it. You're going to use it for every meeting almost.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's so easy, like ChatGPT, to translate stuff, etc., or to explain it, or even to make a summary of a certain article. It's so easy that you will use it anyway, and it will save time. And in that sense, it's useful, and that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
frequency you're gonna use it.
Let's give an example. And so, you have a retailer, and the retailer wrote you an email that the promotion will be delayed with a week. You can
Mhm.
just send that email to the Gen AI, and the Gen AI will send it to the demand planner.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, right. And this, we have to get used to it, but that's the ease of it. Um, so you with Garvis, you're coming from the demand side, demand sensing in that area. Maybe you can talk a bit more about how to deal with demand, because it's a broad phrase, but how to deal with it.
Yes, so let's go. And demand is, and I thank Laura Cecil for that image, and is a river. So
Yeah,
demand never stops. So people who freeze it, it's an illusion.
yeah,
It doesn't stop. So it might be the next day, and of course the river flows not only to you, it flows to competition, it flows to alternatives, to
yeah,
substitutes in the end. But what too much is taught right now is that demand is about trying to find out as exactly as possible what's going to come to you. That's
yeah,
one thing. But I think the real opportunity that we have is, if you look at the next slide, Martin, is to increase the river,
yeah,
get to you as much as you possibly can, by understanding what drives the flow of the river, what are the events, what are the customers, what have the competition done, and trying to grasp those opportunities and immediately react to it, almost like a venture capitalist, trying to see where should I hedge my bets to.
yeah,
But in order to do that, we have to think a little bit differently, I think.
Yeah, and I've seen this exercise being done by a lot of companies, Nestle and other mid-sized companies. They've actually visualized it with, like, looks like mountains. Where's the water coming from? And you have canals, you have lakes, you have dams, and the demand doesn't come through. You have canals, and you have leakages. So this exercise will make a whole overview. Where's the demand coming from? And do we want more from it? Of course. Can we handle it? Hopefully. So basically, this is what Laura has taught us. To visualize where's demand coming from, and how can you shape it, and how can you get a better understanding. What makes it work? What will promotions do to increase the flow in the river of demand? So that flow quicker, etc. So that's the exercise of this whole. And yes. Um, but what is the role of humans in all this? Okay, the venture capitalists want to enlarge this demand flow, etc. But what is the human part of it?
Yeah, I think one of the most impressive slide I saw, or the presentation I saw, was from the general. I wrote his name down.
Martin Kruijf, yeah,
Martin Kruijff, yeah, who talked about modern warfare. Of course, that's not supply chain on in its own. But if we want to react fast to changing situation, we have to go away from hierarchical decisions. We have to be able to make fast, collaborative decisions.
yeah,
And then, of course, part of what you need is the right technology, the right weapons, you would say, but to use the word, but you need your AI, you need your generative AI to support you. You need also have clear policies. What are you allowed to do? What kind of decision can you make? Of course, um, it's not for middle management to decide I'm going to build a new factory, but it could be a decision of a sales, to stop a certain promotion and move to somebody else, another product, while he sees more opportunity. So the opportunity it creates is a lot more knowledge and leading role to get the what and not the how for people. And so to be a lot more leading in the area that they make the decisions with the help of AI to be within the boundaries and the constraints where they can make their optimal decisions. So I see a lot more importance for the human being and
yeah.
the AI as an assistant.
So no, to rephrase it, this Martin Kruijf was the commander in chief of the Afghan forces, the Allied forces, and he was commanding 42,000 soldiers, even 20,000 US soldiers. And basically, he wrote guidelines what to do. And as we see now, and in modern warfare, you have to delegate decision makers to the lowest environment in the field with clear guidelines. And it's the same what we see now. Nestle as a big company is becoming flatter and flatter, and is more like a flotilla of smaller business units, like you see on the right hand side, with smaller opcos, business units, etc., making their own decisions on the floor, in the field, and that's basically applying to what Peter is saying. So, but one
And
important thing
that's
is that you have to write down the guidelines and then delegate it and trust your people with the right technology to make these kind of decisions.
That's true. Yeah. So, but that only can give you the speed, to react to changes and opportunities in the market.
Yeah, and I think the new generation, the new talents, they want to be heard. They want to make decisions, so they feel that they are important, and that's a crucial aspect. So bigger companies, should trust them, but also give them the tools, and that also the new generation, the new talents expect these new tools when they get into a company. And I see old screens, user interfaces with black and green, they go away. So that's one part of it that has to be understood. But now let's go into demand planning and all this kind of data, how to deal with that. Because what do you need? You said data is essential and statistics. So how do you work with it?
Yeah, so like this is how like our river flows into our organization. All these peaks and troughs, and the
Yeah,
the way we deal with it is basically by but these peaks and troughs are driven by price changes, supply bottlenecks, competition events, all kind of things that happen in the real world. And you see this line, and also your incoming orders. Are there orders missing? Are there unexpected spikes? Are we out of stock? And the way we deal with this is with a flattened line, and then we try to assemble information around it. The key the key invention that we have done, and which I consider a bit the stone of Rosetta for those who know, who helped to translate the hieroglyphs at the time, is
Hmm.
the capability, Martin, in the next slide, to basically in a digital language describe what these events, customer action, competition action, how they have influenced the demand in a digital way, but also in an insight way, so that you know that you have like a kind of language that can describe what's happening and what is going to happen. And so a sort of promotion gives you a lift of 20, for instance. A promotion in combination with a competition actually gives you a lift of 10. When it happens at Easter, then it gives you a lift of 30. So
Hmm.
that language, that combination, that's objective for all parties, for everybody in the organization, but that can be linked to your demand. And if you talk about language, of course, then of course you can you talk about generative AI, yeah, because generative AI is the language model that can interact with that type of
But
information.
to understand it correctly, the narrow AI aspect is making these correlations. You see with
Yes,
the small
correct.
small green lines, and you need humans to say what is cause and effect. So the causality, you still need humans. There was a promotion by the competition and that it
Now
was
it's a collaboration. It's a
yeah,
collaboration between the AI is going to look. Okay, this I don't understand. Can you give me an answer?
yeah,
Oh, this was an event, or so that helps to have the dialogue with sales or with marketing very specific.
yeah.
What did then happen because it influenced the demand? But on the other hand, you as can towards the future also say, okay, I'm going to have these events, these promotions, these elements that the system then can already preview that this is going to happen and look how your demand acted on that in the past.
Yeah, and look at this, how to use it moving forward, because in the end,
Exactly.
you understand it, and then what?
Yeah. So basically, that helps you to describe what happens in the world. For
Yeah,
instance, I have an event in combination with customers, and these are my competitive actions. Then the system will, the AI will split it into baseline, seasonality, trend, promotion, new products, events, and for each of them give a probability. Yeah? So am I under forecasting or over forecasting, or am I going to, if I have 100 in my forecast, is it between 90 and 110, or is it between 40 and 160, for instance, which makes a huge difference. But because it's a language now, it can be read by uh, all the participants in your supply chain. Everybody can now understand why what's coming at me, and instead of looking backwards, you're now looking forward.
but the main thing for me in this slide is, you dissect the different kind of graphs, the baseline, the seasonality, because everybody can relate to that, because and that's already complex enough. But so that's the dissected in a way that all the parties involved, financial, supply chain, commercial, can relate to it. That's one thing. And then you will trust this data, and you trust these trends also from the other people involved, and that's an important part, because otherwise you won't get the trust. You will never get to the point of one
No,
data, one
I,
number
I, I,
planning. Yeah,
I totally agree. And so the whole thing is then, if somebody says, no, I don't trust your number, what do you know then?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
that becomes the question. What do you know that I don't know? So
yeah.
sales says, for instance, I will sell 150, but the baseline says plus the promotion that's in place is only 120 based on. So where does the 30 come from? And
Yeah,
that's
and basically, it's already so complex with all kind of interactions, promotions, competition, and you name it. That's why you need to dissect it to get a better understanding. 10 years ago, this whole supply chain planning seems to be a black box, and you couldn't get in. You couldn't take off the hood and go inside. But now you have a better understanding. So how do we get to this graph?
Yes, exactly. And that's now, once all that information is there, then we go to the next slide. And then basically we go to how it collaborates with the generative AI. Yeah?
Yeah,
So we were talking about demand AI in the
yeah,
left corner on the back. So these links the links that you make in your organization, and that can be done by sales marketing or also by demand. You link the peak to a customer, you link the trough to a competitor. That
yeah,
information is summarized and made available with what they call labels or attention heads, they're
mhm,
called. And then you have the generative AI, which is a language model, and that's able to understand those symbols. And then you
yep,
can ask the question, what sells the most? Sells, it's going to look at, it knows that that's what the AI does, that it has to look for growth and the highest numbers, So that's summarized, and then you get the answer, what sells the most, and then click on it. The best is brand Y, for instance, or and then why is that if it's promoted? But if you get summarize other parts of the supply chain next to it, like market share, it can make all of a sudden now these conversations. And so the CEO can ask, what are my three most selling products? Or what are my three best promotions? Or if I have 100,000, where should I invest them? So
yeah.
that's type of interaction you get. Or where is my stock? Or
Yeah, yeah, you could ask Gen AI, what should I do? Should I increase stock or not? And where? I think that's what you're saying. So you make
yeah,
it better.
that's where we're going to. That's where we're going to. At the moment, now let's first walk. Yeah. So the
Yeah,
beginning is uh, take me to the three most selling products. Explain me why they sell most, but also why is my forecast different from last month? And why
yeah,
is it different? Yeah,
yeah,
that's already possible. And then the next level is okay. What should we do? That's
yeah.
that's
But
but always in a separate.
yeah, but you already showed it last year in your demo with Garvis, and it's also available in the demo at the Logility environment right now. That you go into your application and you would ask, what will this do for this coffee brand with the promotion, and what will it do for my sales, and that kind of stuff. These kind of questions you could ask as a non-trained salesperson going into this application, and you get your answers with graphs based on the data inside your application.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's out of the box. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And it was not pre-prepared; it was real life data, and it is. So, and that you have to have this data layer where you can ask this question to the chatbot inside to get this answer. Otherwise, you can't. Um, so you talked about the iPhone moment. So, and now we talk about the color TV. So, how do you explain this transformation?
Yeah, so now it's not a number anymore. It's like a number in its context. It's a number that has a whole set of descriptions under it, and when something of these descriptions change, the color change, and
Mhm, mhm.
then it immediately becomes clear what you could do or need to do about it. That's
Yeah,
so, and because it's digital, that information is available everywhere, and because it's you have policies, and you could allow information not to be fixed but to flow.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, and and the final thing is, I hear a lot of questions from the audience, where to start, because this looks like heaven, but and in the end, we are all connected, and all the parties involved, finance, supply chain, marketing, sales, etc., are connected. But where do you start with the digital connected planning, and how do you explain it, what it will do, so you can start?
yes. So I spoke about these big balls in the
Yep.
beginning, and I didn't want to have too many moving parts. But you can basically start just with your sales history and looking, okay, what for information do I already have there? That's
Hmm.
that's one point. And then because you have your baseline, your trend, your seasonality as part of your other components, you can ask all your department. You don't have to make a budget anymore. Everybody's starting from scratch, but you can ask everybody. And so the circles are sales insights, marketing are the squares, the supply chain have their triangle insights. And the system will look at those assumptions, how they worked in the past, and combine them together. Because if you think one of the big problems with budgets is that if something went well, everybody owns it. When something went bad, nobody owns it.
Yep.
I just translate it like, for instance, you have a hit of a product, marketing thinks, hey, it's our television campaign, sales thinks, I am a wonderful sales guy. If it's the opposite, then you don't sell anything. Then it's because it's too expensive, it's too this, too that. So if you make a budget, it's very important that you don't add those different elements in the wrong way up. And then secondly, it's very important that you're able to permanently assess whether your assumptions are still correct, and therefore you have almost to go in like a continuous mode, because you've built your budget based on the assumptions that are based on the past. You can permanently check, okay, are these assumptions still the assumptions that forward looking, and that
Yeah.
allows you to be continuously working. So how do you start? I would start with first analyzing, okay, what's my historical demand and what can I learn from that, and then it's very easy then to move it from supply chain to sales, from sales to finance, from finance to marketing, and then consolidate it again.
Yeah. I got a question related to this. You mentioned, now I mentioned, companies getting flatter. Uh, Question from the audience: flatter companies by implementing AI, but why not the opposite? You could easier centralize decisions and operations, couldn't you?
Yeah, yes. Let me go to that in the customer example I've given at the end. I'll remember your question,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's you have to think more of it as a network. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But maybe before we get there, there's also a question about how to use real-time information, at what frequency should you use it. So maybe you can address this, and then later on we get to the example, and we can
yeah,
answer
yeah,
the
yeah, yes,
centralization
yeah, yeah,
part.
yeah. So the frequency, and I it's a bit daring, yeah, in the sense that I want the frequency should be driven by the type of event. And
Yeah.
so it's very important, Martin, like you said in the beginning, you have to have policies because otherwise it doesn't work. You have to have constraints that you say you can decide, or when stock remains between these levels, you don't change it. When the supplier is within these borders, it is what you want to focus on are the exceptions. And then the exception should indicate whether it's something strategic, whether it's something tactical, or whether it's something orchestratable, that you need to orchestrate, um, or whether it's an opportunity you should delve into to look for growth, or it's something that can be a destroyer of value. Typically,
Yeah.
think about an a hurricane, for instance,
Yeah. Yeah.
that has an impact that's a negative one, but a new product that you launch in a country that grows faster than you expected is an opportunity for other countries, for instance. So you need to look at it as out of point of your business health more than out of like okay, which process and which timeline I need to. It's more decision driven. What
Yeah.
kind of decision do I need to make over which horizon? This image basically says as the information flows in, the information is everywhere at the same moment. So a lot of decisions are already visible for people at the moment that they happen, and then you have to think more a WhatsApp type of interaction then like this very formal, like everybody gets together and we do this 1 2 3 4 meetings in a row.
Yeah.
Of course this is new model, and happy to hear critic or opportunities from everybody. Yeah.
No, but I think I remember the webinar last year. That Jacobs Douwe was also in the webinar explaining that the whole demand and forecast cycle is done very quickly, whereas the cycle on supply chain planning takes much more time. So basically, uh, you have to deal how with this frequency. That's the one part, and another part is you have different kind of clock speeds per industry. So the pharma industry has a long term view, developing new products, and the medtech is the same. Basically, read the book Clock Speed by Charles Fine. So every industry has its own clock speeds, and based on that, you need to respond accordingly. So, but now in the last decade, we come all used to S&OP planning cycles from 1 month, week 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you go to the next cycle. But that will change, and that was also what Tineke Kok last year explained in the
Yeah,
Yakuza Experts environment. In that environment, if you can respond and you need to respond and you have the ability, you should.
yeah, exactly, Martin. And that's, I think, is a big difference. It's what decision imposes itself to be taken. It's
Yep.
possible that after 1 week in the next year, you already see that you need an infrastructure change, within the
Yep.
6 months, then you don't have to wait till 6 months, or it becomes an urgency. You should try to deal with it at that moment. And that's, and maybe other things, so you should less be process driven, more decision driven. So what kind of decision do we need to make, and look at, at that in the frequency needed by
Yep.
by um, by
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
type of problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and also what I see in the coffee world, you have two types of coffee beans, and basically, some coffee beans cannot grow any longer in the lower parts of the valley. They have to move up, but that will be competing with other coffee beans. So you already have to make decisions right now for the next year, to get the right coffee beans. So that's one sign, So the whole industry that dictates you're in when to make decisions, and basically that's your part. Another question from the audience, I see demand AI, and I know you're coming from the demand sensing world. So how does demand sensing in? And basically, demand sensing came from the world. You have your point of sale data, and you could do better forecasting. Is it changing, or how is demand sensing
No,
fitting into?
the demand setting is yeah, it's a different, like, the you have assumption and you have demand sensing. Assumptions are things that are forecast in itself, so there are
Yeah,
causals, like the index, for instance, or like if you're in manufacturing for the building industry,
yeah,
the number of licenses or building permits, that are being given, they will influence your demand, but they're forecast on themselves. So
yeah,
you have to check every time. Demand sensing is not like information from a forecast. It's basically what your customers are doing.
yeah,
It starts with the point of sales, then you have the inventory of your distributors, and then you have your orders. Now, a lot of there is a bit of a misconception that people think, yeah, if I have my sellout information, so the point of sale, then I
yep.
have a perfect forecast. It's not true,
No.
because I give just an example. Your distributor might just sell out everything that you have because he wants to replace you. Then
Yep.
you will have a peak in your point of sales, and your demand will go away forever. So it's the combination that makes the strongest results, and it is the most predictive are orders. Although people think more that is point of sales, but the point of sales need to go through stock, and then the decision made in the organization will drive the order, and the order will come in. Now, the orders themselves, they have natures. So out of the orders, AI can get, oh, are there more orders than usual? Well, okay, sales, what's happening? Are there less orders than usual? Are there orders that are raw materials that I don't have? Or are there orders from suppliers, that I have a tendency to be very, very late, or very, very intermittent? So it's a different type of information, but it's also information that will help you to make your demand picture more complete. So
Yeah.
demand sensing help you with accuracy, but the goal, as we started today, is not only accuracy. Accuracy, you can be very accurate, but uh, and your volume is 100, but you could have been a little bit less inaccurate, but your volume could have been 140 if you have um, more interacted with your business. So it's about creating the best possible demand.
Yeah.
That's the
And
more the big
you,
thing.
quite recently, you saw the example of solar panels. 2 years ago, there was a huge demand for solar panels, so much that there was not enough solar panels. So all the distributors, they placed orders at the manufacturers, not by one, but they placed 100 at three of them, in the hope that they will get some. And basically, then China start producing again, and so all these manufacturers are producing, and this the distributors, they said, "Oh, that's too much," so they canceled a lot of those orders, and now a lot of these manufacturers and distributors are stuck with a lot of inventory of solar panels because they ordered too much. They placed orders at the same 100 three times at the manufacturer, and basically you should have a better understanding how that works, so you can anticipate this whole kind of notion of creating a bullwhip, basically. Um,
Exactly. It's a bit a beer game, eh?
yeah, yeah. Maybe to wrap up and to finalize, we have an extra 30 minutes later on. But for offline in our virtual lounge. But maybe you can explain it in a day of life how it looked like when you go into this world of AI.
Yeah, so this is an example of a life science organization. So what typically happens in countries where they make the first forecast, there is and life science is a very good example here because they have a drug, and a competing competitor for a life-threatening drug is out of stock, and of course the demand peaks like hell. All the
Yeah,
information that which is translated to the central the planning environment is just this huge speak there and some notes that this competitor is out of stock. So that is gathered in spreadsheets, and there are basically more than 90 spreadsheets. And centrally, there are more than 30 reports. So then people see this spike, and then they want to say, "Oh, this is so much change against my previous forecast. Where does this come from?" So they go and search in the different spreadsheets, and then they have to call and to find the regional planner. Is this spike just one time? Is it permanent? Is he out of
yeah,
the market? So that means a whole month, and everybody's making reports and on. So in this environment now that we have set up, and that's the next slide, we capture that information at the source. And so, as we said, we have this language that we can say, okay, this peak, this supplier out of stock from down to then we expected. That information is gathered and centrally in combination with demand sensing. So centrally now, when this peak is seen, they can ask what's happening with this peak, or what's okay, this product is out of stock of the supply. We expect it to be back then. That's
yeah,
just
yeah.
the interaction. Of course, which is like a ton of work, that preparing spreadsheets, preparing all that information. The control tower basically now goes into the systems themselves.
And basically, we talked about decades about control towers, but now everybody has access to this data, and you don't need a control tower in such a way, but everybody can have their own insights, and they know what to do. So that's basically what they're saying. So it is like getting back into the military environment. You have delegated the decision making to the lowest identity with the guidelines based on the availability of data you've created with the light green AI environment.
Yes, so
Yeah.
that's back to the question. Remember the question then,
Yes.
which like
Yes.
centralized, decentralized. It's more like a network now, that
Yeah. Yeah.
you want to
And
set up.
yeah, and I think that's the way forward to do decentralize decision making in a guided way that you all are comfortable with. To wrap up, final slide. So, what are the results up till now applying all this?
Yeah. So first of all, it's fundamental influence on latency. If you
Yeah,
give the authority, decision can make a lot faster. And one of the other things is also accuracy. It helps with accuracy. It's focused not only on just being accurate, but also on creating more sales. And
yeah,
so for the first time, your S&OP, the supply chain function is not just about asking sales what they've done, but also telling back to sales what they should do. So
yeah,
don't tell sales, but that's basically because best, for them because you have the overview what they should do, because you have the results in your heads. And then, of course, the time to value. These self-regulating AI systems, which are the new generation, you should not have like hundreds of data scientists, to set them up. They should be self setting up, as they're focused on specific problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot. We have 1 minute for questions, but I think that there are a lot of questions. Too much. I will recommend you to stay on later or later after this. But how do you start? Maybe that's the final question, and then we get to the next in the virtual lounge.
Yeah, so what I would do is like you start with trial. So it's very fast to set up the basic system. We load your history, or you can load your history, and then you can see mapped out, what are the elements that drive your demand, and you can start from there, and then you can expand more data, more divisions, bring in supply, bring in other elements. You don't have to replace anything. You can just put it on top of everything that you have, and then you can start looking, okay, which are the elements that I can replace or that I can work with. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. I know. Like I said, thanks a lot. So, right after this, Pete and I will be available at table 1. So you have a lot of questions, and if not answered in this virtual lounge, we will get back to you because there are way too much in the chat and the Q&A. But that's understandable with this kind of topic. There's more information on one side. Now, on the left-hand side, you see the IT super map. You go into that. There's a lot of information about all the vendors, how to position them, and also, with Garvis and Logility. In the middle, you see a very interesting report created by Logility about Gen AI. And there's a demo where you can watch it. And, we have seen it before last year with Garvis. Now with Logility, you have a similar demo. So basically, there's a lot of tons over there. But still, we are happy to answer your questions right after this. So for now, Pete, thank you for your explanation. It was very, very insightful, and thank you for this. And I'd like to thank the audience for watching. And, I hope to see you again one day next week or whatever in another webinar. And, I'm inviting you right now to go to the lounge to ask this question, because I can imagine a lot of questions not answered. So please join us in the lounge, and I will see you later. If not, thank you for now, and bye-bye.
Okay, and also thank you from my side, because I have.
Thanks a lot, and see you in the lounge, probably.
Bye.